Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today, I'm bringing you a special video about Diep and James, two people who have gone through countless hardships, and now find themselves standing at a brand new turning point. James has returned, but things didn't unfold the way he had hoped. His return isn't just a simple reunion, it comes with conflicting emotions, quiet moments filled with sorrow, and secrets that have yet to be revealed. In today's video, we'll follow every event and every emotion to understand why things have changed this way, and what is truly waiting for them ahead. Make sure to watch until the end so you don't miss any moment. The moment the door opened, Little Nie froze for a second as if she couldn't believe her eyes. Then instantly, she sprang forward like a tiny arrow, her short legs pattering across the floor. Her soft hair fluttered with every step, and her eyes sparkled with a joy no words could fully describe. "Uncle James!" she shouted as she threw herself into his arms, hugging him so tightly it felt as if she wanted to melt into him. That small embrace trembled, filled with the unspoken fear only a child carries, the fear that if she let go, the man she loved so much might leave again, just like before. Her voice shook, tangled with the quick breaths after running. "Uncle James, I missed you so much." Just that one sentence struck James deeply. He slowly crouched down, wrapping his arms around her, feeling a mix of warmth and a sharp ache in his chest. His hand rested gently on her head, so gently it felt as though even a little more pressure might hurt her, because in that moment, he realized he had made her wait far too long, waiting in a longing she didn't fully understand. He smiled, but the corners of his lips trembled. That smile was for me, yet his eyes reddened, filled with guilt he couldn't hide. "I'm sorry." His voice dropped, hoarse, as if blocked by everything he hadn't yet said. "Work has kept me so busy lately. But I promise, I'll visit you and your mom more often." Little Nie lifted her tiny face, her eyes wet and shimmering as if trying to listen to every word, wanting to make sure that promise was real, something she could hold on to. James gently wiped the tear from the corner of her eye. He kept a soft smile on his face, trying to appear calm to reassure her. But deep within his gaze, the guilt and regret remained unmistakable, heavy enough for anyone paying attention to feel it. That moment stretched on, warm yet painfully tender. Like a reunion they had both waited for so long, but one that still carried many unspoken things lingering in the air. That afternoon, James decided to spend all his time with Little Nie, as if trying to make up for every day he had been absent, days he himself felt guilty about. In the small bathroom, warm steam rose softly, wrapping the two of them in a rare cocoon of coziness and peace. James bent down, his large hands surprisingly gentle as he washed her hair. He spread the white foam over her thin, silky strands and massaged lightly, afraid even a bit of pressure might hurt her. Nie, however, couldn't sit still. Her little legs splashed water nonstop, sending droplets onto James's face every time, making him burst into laughter. "Uncle James, you're all wet now," she squealed, eyes squinting mischievously, laughter bubbling out of her. James looked at her, and in that moment, her smile seemed to wash away every tired thought he'd been carrying. His gaze softened, deepened, as if just seeing her happy was enough to brighten his entire world. When the bath was over, he wrapped her in a big towel and carried her out to dry her off carefully. Nie sat still, her clear eyes fixed on James's face, making him feel even more the special bond this child had with him. Once she was dry, James went to the kitchen. The small space filled with the sounds of chopping vegetables, the quiet sizzle of oil, and the comforting smell of home-cooked food spreading through the air. It was a simple meal, golden fried eggs, fresh green soup, a bit of braised meat, but every movement he made was slow, attentive, as if it were the most important task in the world. To him, taking care of me wasn't an obligation. It was something he genuinely wanted to do. When they sat down to eat, Nie suddenly got up, ran into her room, and returned with her hands hidden behind her back. She placed a small white package in front of James, her cheeks flushed with nervousness. "I made this for you," she whispered. James opened it. Inside was a small clay figurine, crooked and uneven, but adorably so, a slightly tilted head, short arms, hair, and a smile that resembled him enough to make him freeze. "I made you, because I missed you so much." That innocent sentence, pure as it was, carried a weight that squeezed James's heart. He stared at the gift for a long moment, his throat tightening. Then he bent down, inhaled deeply to steady himself, and spoke softly. "Thank you. I'll take good care of it. And I'll keep my promise to you." Nie beamed, her eyes curving like crescent moons, full of trust. Late that night, Diep returned home. She stepped in with the weary slump of someone who had spent the entire day working at the market, her shoulders pulled down by the weight of endless concerns. The smell of farm produce clung to her clothes, her hands were still dusty from sorting goods. But the moment she saw James sitting in the living room, all that exhaustion vanished in an instant, replaced by something deeper, heavier. Diep froze. She didn't know whether to be happy he had come back, or hurt because he hadn't said a word beforehand. Her voice trembled as she spoke. "You've been back in Vietnam for over a week. And you didn't tell me or our child anything." James lowered his head, his fingers unconsciously tightening around the clay figurine Nie had made, as if it were the only thing keeping him grounded. Diep saw that, and her chest tightened even more. She took a breath, but this time she couldn't hide the pain. "Do you even consider us your family? Why didn't you tell me, so I wouldn't worry?" I thought maybe you didn't need us anymore." Silence wrapped the room. Even the slow spinning of the ceiling fan seemed loud. James looked at her, his eyes filled with complicated emotions, regret, conflict, exhaustion, and something else, something like a secret he couldn't yet reveal. Finally, he spoke, slowly. "I have my reasons." Just that. But to Diep, it felt colder than if he had simply walked away. It was like an invisible blade, not sharp enough to hurt instantly, but deep enough to ache long after. She was angry, but because she was too hurt, too exhausted to hear another apology that changed nothing. She took a long breath, trying to steady herself even though her heart felt like it was twisting apart. "Please go. Staying here only hurts me more." Her voice wasn't loud or sharp, but it was heavy enough to make the room feel as though it had stopped breathing. James froze, his eyes wavering. Diep turned her face away, trying to suppress her sobs, but her shoulders shook over and over, as if she had just cut off the most important piece of her life with her own hands. No one said another word. Only Diep's muffled breaths, and the painful silence stretching between them. James stopped in front of the small room where Little Nie was sleeping. The warm yellow light spilling through the doorway fell gently across her tiny face, her lashes resting softly, her breathing steady, her innocence so pure that just looking at her could soften anyone's heart. He stepped inside quietly, afraid even the slightest sound might disturb that fragile peace. Nie was curled under a thin blanket, holding her teddy bear tightly. There was still a faint smile on her lips, perhaps because knowing James had come home allowed her to sleep more peacefully. James sat beside the bed, his hand trembling slightly as he reached out to brush her soft hair. The simple touch made his throat tighten painfully. "I'll come back to you and your mom soon." His voice was hoarse, buried deep in his chest, carrying a sorrow he couldn't put into words. He gently placed the little clay figurine she had gifted him on the bedside table, a childish creation, yet the thing that made him feel the most guilty. After a long moment, James stood up. He looked at Nie one last time, as if trying to carve that peaceful image into his memory, then quietly walked out of the room. When he reached the door, Diep was still standing with her back turned to him. She didn't say a word, only hugged her own arms tightly, as if that was the only thing keeping her from collapsing. James looked at her back, small, thinner than before, trembling in silence, but he didn't dare walk closer. The distance between them had never felt this wide. He let out a breath, heavy and strained, one he had been holding for far too long. Then James opened the door and stepped out of the house. The sound of the door closing was soft, but to both of them, it felt like a door inside their hearts was closing too, slow, painful, and inevitable. As James stepped off the porch, Diep's tears finally fell. No more holding back. No more pretending to be strong. She stood there with her back to the world, letting the tears slide silently down her cheeks, no sobs, no sound, yet the pain cut deeper than anything she had spoken earlier. In that moment, neither of them said a word. Just two people, one walking away, one standing behind. Each carrying a quiet ache they didn't know when, or if, they would ever be able to voice. The moment the door closed behind James, the house sank into a silence so suffocating that Diep could barely breathe. That tiny click sounded like it had severed the last thread she had been desperately clinging to. In that instant, her whole body collapsed inward, every ounce of strength and resilience she had forced herself to hold on to simply drained away. Diep stood frozen for a few seconds, her eyes empty as they stared into nothing. Then her legs weakened, unable to hold her upright. She sank onto the floor, her hand reaching out to grip the edge of a chair as if searching for something to anchor herself. But the coldness of the tile seeped into her skin, echoing the tightening pain in her chest. Her heart pounded violently, each beat a sharp stab. Her breaths came uneven, heavy, as if every inhale had to fight against a piercing chill rising from deep inside her. She didn't cry out loud. The pain was too big for sound. All that remained were trembling breaths, and her thin shoulders shaking uncontrollably. In that fragile moment, memories flooded back like a storm. Fast, merciless, unstoppable. That day, the sky had been gray, like a heavy shroud over the world. Diep stood before Fat, Mr. Hohn's trusted henchman. She remembered clearly the sting of the cold wind against her face, but inside, she was burning with fear and determination. Her hands clenched so tightly that her nails dug into her skin, hurting sharply, yet she did not pull back. Her whole body trembled, not from the cold, but from the weight of what she was about to sacrifice. Even so, her eyes stayed firm, steely. The eyes of a mother ready to face anything to protect her child, and the man she loved. Fat studied her for a moment, his face unreadable. When he finally spoke, his voice was as cold as a verdict. If you truly want James to stay safe, then you must leave him. Mr. Hohn doesn't want you or the child anywhere near James anymore. Each word hit Diep like a hammer blow to the heart. She felt her stomach tighten, as if a piece of her was being ripped away. But she did not crumble. She would not allow herself to. Diep drew a deep breath, her hands gripping her shirt so tightly they shook. I will leave him. But you must promise me, James must remain safe. No threats. No control. No more harm. Fat looked at her for a long moment, his sharp gaze weighing the worth of her words. Then he nodded, his voice flat, like someone sealing a contract. As long as you keep your promise. At that moment, Diep felt her heart being crushed. She bowed her head, tears falling into her trembling palms. Not out of cowardice. Not out of fear. But because she knew. She had just cut away the most precious part of her life. She chose to step out of James's world. Not because she stopped loving him, but because she loved him enough to sacrifice herself. The memory faded, but the pain sharpened. Diep wiped her tears, but the more she wiped, the more they fell. At last, she lifted her head, looking like someone who had just walked through a storm inside her chest. Her eyes were still red, but no longer weak. A flame had ignited, the flame of resolve, of long-suppressed fury finally rising. She whispered, her voice low but firm. "I kept my promise. I left him. But tomorrow, I will face his father, Mr. Hone. I will demand justice." Darkness settled over the room, cloaking everything in heavy shadow. But in Diep's eyes, a fire was burning. Strong, slow, and impossible to extinguish. The story pauses at the moment Diep stands alone in the darkened room, where the cold night air slips through the cracks of the door, and her heart has yet to recover from the tearful parting she just endured. The pain is still there, heavy, throbbing. Yet strangely, her eyes no longer drown in despair as before. In the darkness, her gaze begins to glow with a different kind of strength. The quiet resolve of someone who no longer wants to run away. Tomorrow, she will step toward the door she has avoided for so long. The door of that powerful family. The door behind which Mr. Hone, James's father, waits. A towering and cold presence she has never dared to face. But tomorrow, everything will change. Diep is no longer the fragile girl who only knows how to cry and endure. No longer the mother who silently signed the sentence that tore her from the man she loves. No longer the woman who swallowed every hurt just to keep the peace. She is going there. Not to beg. Not to justify herself. But to reclaim justice. To protect James from the dangers closing in on him. Dangers coming from the very place that should have protected him most, his own family. She knows the meeting will not be easy. She knows she may be rejected, threatened, even insulted. But none of that matters anymore. The only things she carries with her are love and courage. What will Mr. Hone say when Diep stands before him? Will he explode in anger? Or will he smile, cold and calculated? What awaits her behind that grand door? Where power, secrets, and long-running schemes have been quietly at work. And James? Does he know? Does he know that the woman he loves is fighting a battle he should have been the one to face? Does he know how much she has sacrificed? Just so he could live in peace for one more day? All these questions float in the darkness, unanswered. But one thing is certain. Tomorrow will change everything. The story pauses here for now. But Diep, James, and Little Nie still have many secrets waiting to be revealed. Will Diep defeat the force behind everything? Or will she pay a price for her courage? Stay tuned for the next episode to find out. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and leave a comment to support the story.
Xin chào tất cả mọi người đã quay trở lại với kênh của mình. Chồng ơi, hay là vợ mua riêng cho chồng một cái chat ha. Tại vì chat của mọi người ở bên YouTube rồi. Thêm một chat chồng chuyên đăng nhập bên đấy. Cảm ơn mọi người đã theo dõi video. Tạm biệt mọi người.